What is Bitcoin Gold? How does this affect you as a Bitcoin holder? And how do we at 10x treat a potential fork in our system? Hey and welcome to this video. My name is Julian. I'm one of the co-founders at 10x. And so obviously whenever there's a new coin or a new fork or something new happening, we get a lot of questions on people. How are we gonna treat that? How do we see it? What is our input as investors? What is our input as a company holder? And so today, on the one hand, I want to give you some insights on how I personally see Bitcoin Gold, and then obviously how we as a team and how we as a company treat Bitcoin Gold within our app, on our card, as these things. Now, obviously, keep in mind that none of the things that we talk here on our YouTube channel is in any way investment advice. Everything I do here is really more on a personal level that I try to educate people out there, and I hope you appreciate that. But obviously, I do understand that on the other hand, you want to know what's happening and how we in the company treat such new forks. So let's dive straight into it. Let's start with what is Bitcoin Gold first of all. Bitcoin Gold was announced that they want to fork Bitcoin. And so on Ethereum, there's people doing ICOs. In Bitcoin, they try to fork those, the main chain. And the reason they're doing this and not starting a new coin is because it wouldn't be as exciting to have an XYZ gold coin versus you have a Bitcoin gold coin. I mean, just from a marketing perspective and search engine optimization, it's just really good. And you have all this attention and all this kind of focus. And I've linked the official website of Bitcoin Gold and also the Bitcoin talk below, so you can look up the official things, and I'm just going to summarize and kind of highlight a couple of things. And what is their proposal? Why are they forking? Well, obviously, there's always a lot of reasons why they are forking, but on the one hand, it's about bringing decentralization back to Bitcoin. That's kind of their slogan. I don't know, to me, when I hear this, make something again, I can't hear this thing. So it's like, let's make Bitcoin decentralized again. That's their slogan. And basically what they mean with this is the following. Mining in Bitcoin has been quite centralized. There's really large mining communities, and they kind of control the mining. And then especially you have all these ASIC miners that are really strong on that, which doesn't allow the average Joe like you and me to mine Bitcoin. And so what they want to do is they want to change the mining algorithm. Bitcoin Gold wants to go away from SHA-256 and they want to go over to Equihash, which is something that's used also in other coins, but basically it's ASIC resistant mining. That means you can mine it with GPUs, which you could also do regular Bitcoin, but you're just not going to get any profit because the GPU mining is just not as profitable. The main reason behind this could be seen in an economic kind of force. Now, I don't see the entire fork economy driven. I see it very politically, I see it very ideological, and I might see it a little bit of a scammy drive, but let's talk about that in a bit of a later video, or later part of the video. But I mean, that part of the different kind of mining could be seen that maybe NVIDIA or maybe AMD, they want to have a share of this mining part, where at the moment Bitmain, for example, has a really strong kind of part, Radeon graphic cards, right? So these are really strong miners in traditional Bitcoin. And so you could kind of shift a bit and you could have other providers for mining in this entire ecosystem. And obviously there's some economic drive behind it. So I want to really put that out there. So we have a different mining algorithm. They're going to keep SegWit, which is very different to Bitcoin Cash. There's no SegWit there. Then they're going to have a variable block size, 1 megabyte. And so basically this block size debate that we also would have with 2x, which is coming up. And I'm also going to make a video on that because obviously that also affects 10x. But so that variable block size is also a relevant thing for Bitcoin Gold. But so basically, other than that, there is quite straightforward, not much that is gonna change. So you could sit there and say, okay, so now we have Bitcoin Cash, we have Bitcoin Gold, we have a potential 2x. I mean, I don't understand it, right? And to be honest, neither do I, right? So let's dig into some deeper things, and maybe let's try to understand a bit of the economics, the politics that are working in this, and let's look into what's really happening. One thing that is a really there's two really important things whenever you try to fork Bitcoin. The first one is obviously you need to deal with the mining difficulty. The mining difficulty works in a way, and I don't know if you've ever heard my explanation of the mining, where when you send a transaction and you sign basically that transaction with your private key, you create something like a puzzle piece. And that puzzle piece is really, really unique. And then what these miners out there try to do is they try to fit these puzzle pieces into their block so that block looks in a certain way. And that means in mining language that it starts with a certain amount of zeros. And that's basically nothing else than the hash that comes out where all these transactions get hashed and there's a certain amount of zeros that come out. And you don't know as a miner how to actually, what kind of nonce, so basically what kind of extra puzzle piece you add in order to get these zeros, because it's a really random process. So you do nothing else than trying. And to put this into a picture, it's basically you take all these puzzle pieces and you just try to put them into certain forms and you try to get the right puzzle out of all these pieces. Now, obviously there's pure luck and this is pure trying. Now, on average, in Bitcoin, the entire network takes around 10 minutes to find a nonce, so basically to find how this puzzle should look like for it to match the mining difficulty. Now, if you fork that and you don't adjust the difficulty, what's going to happen is if you have 10% of the mining power, it's going to take you 10 times as long for the next block. If you have only 1% of the mining power, then you need 100 times to match all these puzzle pieces together so you find the right puzzle, so basically to find the right block. And 100 times, that's 1,000 minutes. That's really, really long. We're talking about 16 hours for one block. And that begs a very important question. Who of the miners trusts into us in a system where the mining difficulty might be super, super long and where I don't know, I invest all this electricity and all this energy and I don't know how much I'm going to get out? So obviously it's really important that the mining difficulty gets adjusted. Bitcoin Cash, for example, they adjusted the mining difficulty, but even for them, it was quite challenging in the first couple of days to have a proper block time, which showed how difficult it actually was. And if you don't have massive support and massive finances behind it, you're not going to have the grit to stick this through and you just say, hey, you know what, screw it, I'm going to mine something else. And I think that's a very important fact here. So one key aspect is going to be how good is Bitcoin Gold going to be in adapting the mining difficulty. Now, I'm going to have some comments on that because the question obviously is when is the fork actually happening and what does it look like? But a bit more on that in a second. Because there's something else. There's a second really important part whenever you fork, which is so-called replay. And the first time that we really saw replay was a bit over a year ago when Ethereum and Classic split off. And suddenly we had all these replay attacks. And what is this? What this basically means is if you fork, the history of the blockchain is the same for both chains. So if you own a Bitcoin before, you own still Bitcoin, but suddenly now you get a free new coin, which is Bitcoin Gold. And this can actually be quite dangerous, and I'm going to explain you why. Because now suddenly you have these two coins, and whenever you try to make a transaction on either chain, remember, transaction from, to, how much, timestamp, then you get a unique transaction ID. And this unique transaction ID happens because you signed that transaction with your private key. Now, no one can back calculate from your transaction ID to your signature. So in theory, no one could use a transaction somewhere else. But because the blockchains are the same in theory, if you send Bitcoin Gold to someone, that person can copy that transaction on also the Bitcoin chain. So this can be really dangerous if there's a so-called mining protection, a replay protection not installed. In a replay protection, like Bitcoin Cash installed, you can't just replay the transaction on either chain because there are some changes so the transactions don't match. But imagine, and at the moment, and I just checked the GitHub repository from Bitcoin Gold, they're still trying to figure out how replay protection could work on, I'm not even sure if they actually want it. To me, this sounds really strange. And obviously, I'm filming this on a Sunday 23rd, so maybe by the time you're watching this, maybe they have solved that. I hope so. Because what could happen is this. You send someone Bitcoin Gold, and in the next second, your Bitcoin are gone. And you're like, how the heck did my Bitcoin disappear? Well, it's very simple. Someone replayed that transaction from Bitcoin Gold over to Bitcoin. And that's something that's insanely dangerous because you might get a Bitcoin and a Bitcoin Gold and you're like, okay, I don't want the Bitcoin Gold. You know what? Let me just send it to somewhere. And suddenly your Bitcoin is gone. And to me, that's why many people, and I don't want to say including me, but also me, I'm a bit hesitant. I see Bitcoin Gold almost like a Trojan horse. I see it in a way where there's a group that maybe haven't thought everything through well enough. And again, that's very much my personal opinion, okay? That doesn't reflect the company's opinion. This is really important. It's my personal opinion on this, where I ask myself a couple of questions. Why hasn't this been thought through better? Why are there some really essential things, just like that replay protection, not worked out? Because the plan is to get the Genesis block of Bitcoin Gold on the 25th of October. So in 2 days, and last I checked on the repository, the replay protection wasn't incorporated. So here's a couple of questions. Why is this happening? Well, one of the reasons that could be happening, I'm not saying this is me suggesting it, I'm just saying this could be happening, is that this group says, you know what, people are going to confuse Bitcoin Gold with Bitcoin Cash, and somehow we're going to get all this Bitcoin Gold, and by people sending us this Bitcoin Gold, we're going to get their Bitcoins as well. Because at the moment, there's not many wallets and there's not many exchanges that provided support or that suggested they will provide support, also including 10x. At 10x, we don't intend on providing support for Bitcoin Gold, at least for quite some time, unless we see that Bitcoin Gold is actually going to be successful. And at the moment, we have some really big doubts. So imagine there's a service that says, you know what, send us your Bitcoin Gold and we're going to take care of it. And we're going to change it or whatever. And in the next second, your Bitcoin are gone as well because they just replay that. And that's something that's insanely dangerous if you as a user don't pay attention. And the only thing you actually can do, you can split your coins properly by using a so-called customized replay protection. Or the other thing is you just don't do any Bitcoin or Bitcoin Gold transactions until this matter is solved. And that's actually my recommendation. Should we find out that Bitcoin Gold is not going to have a replay protection, then you shouldn't do Bitcoin or Bitcoin Gold transactions for quite some time until this is solved. And this is something that's, to me, really ridiculous, that I have to worry about suddenly sending Bitcoin transactions. And that's just because there's a fork happening and maybe a lot of wallet providers get confused, some exchanges, and that's actually something that could be quite a challenge if the replay protection doesn't get incorporated in a proper way. Now, that's about the replay protection. I hope that you actually share this video because there's not enough people out there that I think understand how dangerous a fork can be if replay protection is not there. And this is a very important part, and I hope I was clear on how this replay protection works. But there's something else that's really strange about Bitcoin Gold, and that is the entire when does it get forked is not clear because the entire code for that has not been published, at least when I checked yet. Now, what do I mean with this? Well, the Genesis block is supposed to be happening on October 25th. That's when there's a snapshot being taken, and then basically from there, everything gets forked. But there's some really valid voices out there who say that the fork might have happened already in the past, and Bitcoin Gold has just been mining during this time for themselves, so they can start with a certain amount of blocks and a certain amount of Bitcoins. There have been talks about ICO, them doing ICO, and that talk has been dismissed. And then now they want to do an entire set of pre-mining. Maybe the fork is going to happen on October 25th. But then when these coins are actually available for everyone, it's going to be maybe a week or 2 weeks later. And there's a lot of questions. And to me personally, when something like Bitcoin is seen with this, and then you have so much uncertainty, this is not really good for the entire ecosystem because that thing can go south quite fast if we don't pay attention, because what's going to happen is some users might lose their Bitcoin, and this is really dangerous. Or some users to get totally confused on what's happening and think that Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, it's all the same anyways. So what this shows to me is a couple of interesting things. It shows to me that these attacks, I really call them almost attacks, on the fork onto Bitcoin can be, on the one hand, obviously seen as deliberate kind of trying to get some money for these groups who try to fork, of course, but it can also be just seen as whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's something that I really see for Bitcoin at the moment. I see Bitcoin being challenged. Bitcoin is at an all-time high, and obviously this is really important that at these levels, you are being challenged as the global cryptocurrency leader that just broke a total of $100 billion, which is actually a really insane amount. if you think about it. So that is something that I see from a personal standpoint. And for you as a user, just really take care. Own your private keys. This is really important. Remember, we at 10x, at the moment, we don't provide the private keys to you. We will change that, and we're intending on changing that in the future. But so at the moment, only keep those coins on our wallet where you intend on them spending them straight away. And don't keep coins on your wallet just to store them, because you don't have the private keys. If you own your private key, in case there's a fork, and in case it's actually working, and in case there's anything actually happening, you're gonna have the original Bitcoin and you're gonna have a Bitcoin Gold. And then check, is there replay protection? Because if there's no replay protection, then don't get attacked on that, and just simply sit still a bit, wait, slow down a bit, and wait until replay protection is being installed. If you're watching this and you are not in crypto yet, or you're thinking of buying into Bitcoin, then here are a couple of things. No one knows what a cryptocurrency is doing. No one can predict the future. It's literally impossible. So if you're thinking about, should I get into Bitcoin, should I get out of Bitcoin, here are a couple of thoughts. And these are a couple of thoughts that I also discuss within my mastermind group. I discuss this with people that are really, really smart and kind of inspire me with also a lot of thinking so that I can start and put in my own thing. If you want to get into Bitcoin or out of Bitcoin, maybe do it in steps. Maybe say, you know what, I'm going to put half or a third of my money into Bitcoin right now, or I'm going to take half of the money out, because what do I know what Bitcoin is going to do? Because what's going to happen is, it's now before the fork, you can put in another third or another half after a potential Bitcoin Gold fork, and maybe you wait with another third until after a potential 2x fork. Then you might get a really nice average, because who knows? I mean, we could go from 6,000 to 10,000, and obviously we could go from 6,000 to 3,000, right? It's definitely possible. So don't put all the chips onto one bet. And this is something that I think is really important when you have such turning points. And we have two in a row now. We have the Bitcoin Gold one now, and then we have the 2x one. And I'm going to make a very separate video on 2x, because there's a lot of other challenges when we have those, and obviously also what's our stance at 10x when it comes to these challenges. So with this, I hope that clears up to you what Bitcoin Gold is. Obviously, a lot of my personal opinion in this is really, really important. But then obviously, what are we going to do at 10x with Bitcoin Gold? And what does it mean for you? What are a couple of things that you should pay attention to? And these things are actually quite important. So stay tuned, stay up to date. Obviously, be in touch with us, be part of our new Riot Slack, Riot chat group, be part of our Facebook, be part on Twitter, and yeah, stay up to date. I would really love that. And if you want to see more of these videos of 10x updates, remember we do Tuesdays, we have updates, we post every day, every week we post some updates specifically for 10x, and then always some updates on the ecosystem and how these things affect us here at 10x. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to educate our users, we want to educate our token holders, but we want to do something for the entire ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, we at 10x want to bring cryptocurrencies to the masses, so we need to take a couple of steps ahead every once in a while. And so if you want to have more of that, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It would be a pleasure to have you here as a regular guest. And at the very end, let me know your opinion on Bitcoin Gold. Drop it for me in the comments below. Let me know, what do you think about Bitcoin Gold? Is it totally legit? Is it a scam? Is it something that's there to see? Do you trust it? Are you going to buy it? Are you going to sell it? It would be very interesting for me to kind of get a bit of a temperature on the market, how you see it. So with this, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Yours truly, Julian.